They co-opt the word, be open, be authentic, suggesting vulnerability, like we can all be open and trusting and vulnerable together. But when I look at things, the way people are treated, it's a sadistic notion of getting everyone to be fragile just so they can be abused and attacked. Be vulnerable after the scars have healed, after you've got a solid foundation, after you've moved on and you've got a calm smile on your face and there aren't any problems in your life. You're not traumatized anymore. After the sun's come out in your life, then be as vulnerable as you want to be, to the degree to which you've set your boundaries. But not right off the bat. Be suspicious of those people who are asking you to be vulnerable right off the bat. We can barely trust each other. And remember, trust needs to be earned. And for you to be vulnerable, I think it behooves you to be vulnerable with standards, be open with standards and trust people to standards. Don't listen to these arseholes who want you to be vulnerable to every stranger you meet. It's a load of shit. And that's really it. This notion of trying to make everyone fragile, because these days there's victim Olympics. The more of a victim you are, you win. The more fragile you are, supposedly you win, and you're more whole, the more fragile and the more grievances you have, the more weak you are, somehow you win. It's really perverse, it's really sadistic, and it takes advantage of a lot of well-meaning people. And this trust us mentality is by an opportunistic culture that would trust banks, trust politicians no matter how many times they betray them. Just keep trusting them, keep giving them second chances, third chances, fourth chances. Trust us, trust us. How many times are you going to be betrayed and keep trusting the same kind of dynamic? What am I urgently being pushed to be vulnerable for? What's the hurry? Why can't I have a conversation? Why can't I discuss? Why can't I air my concerns and grievances in such a way that another can listen to me? Rather than the conversation just being a one-way, open up, asshole, don't be such a pussy, be vulnerable. Yeah, to that kind of attitude, no thank you. One thing to notice about our culture is the clever way they use semantics to make things like virtue and being open and healthily and sensibly vulnerable, how they make those conveniently synonymous with weakness. The way they craft and use those terms to push you into their kind of vulnerability, as far as I can see, a lot of times it's to make you, over time, weak. They mold you into a weak person rather than molding you into a strong, open, empathic, stable person that has the strength to help others and be of use. So be careful, because they're effectively asking you to be open and naively trust everyone and everything, and that everyone is good. But unfortunately, the world in this system lies and uses semantics these days and propaganda and marketing to make you vulnerable and make you weak. So I've noticed the culture using feel-good slogans, co-opting those slogans to get you to be more and more fragile. And it slowly makes you dependent on that system for handouts, both physically in terms of money and surviving, but also mentally. And over time, you become emotionally and intellectually dependent on a system. You don't stand on your own 2 feet because you've become so fragile. You've become unstable, and you're always looking for Big Brother to assist you, to lean on them. When this sleazy culture and the marketing asks you to, just let go, man, they're asking you to do it without any context. That's the lie, that's the convenient omission, where you're left blind and in the dark, where people are left depressed in the void and without direction. They don't contextualize the letting go and being open. That's the first step. They just ask you to jump off the cliff and, grow wings on the way down. Without the context, sitting back and self-reflection, you'll jump off that cliff, and far from growing wings on the way down, just simply taking everyone's word that you can jump off their cliff and trust that their kind of wings will grow on you without you determining what your wings should be, you won't survive. And that's the perpetual malaise and the perpetual greyness and the anger that many people feel. Guys not getting answers, knowing all the red pill information in the world, but they've taken 5 steps forward without calmly assessing the first couple of steps, that without which you're just flying off in a million different directions and you're trying to grasp for something. I've gone through this initially in a frantic attempt to feel better. You want to feel better as soon as possible, but the unfortunate thing is you have to sit with it and then you'll feel better. Urgency and impatience makes it worse. Unfortunately, there's a sense of urgency wanting to be rid of that initial pain when one is enlightened with the red pill. But the urgency is a trap. You need to sit still for a moment and assess your own life, your own situation. You can't listen to the world and everyone else's one-size-fits-all recommendations. I've said it before, a good way to note is if people are willing to have a calm conversation with you and listen to your point of view as you listen to theirs, and there's a tennis match of a back and forth. That's where you can learn your own, what is making sense for you and what might make sense for you and what you might try given your empirical experience and what you've been through. Not people pushing you to be fragile and open for their sake, sort of like being pitched a deal that you haven't got time to think about, quick, jump on this offer before it disappears or you will die. That's the last thing you need in that initial stage where you actually need to step back and be patient. And you've got the world and others pushing and shaming you to be vulnerable straight away, and you haven't even assessed your own situation. And here's the thing, people won't consciously be planning to be arseholes to take advantage of you, but they'll be opportunistic from a survival point of view, where if you don't say no, they will assume they can do whatever because you're not objecting. This is what I mean. If you take the point of view of the world and women and everything around us being opportunistic from a survival point of view, there's no malice in it. What you really need to do is understand your own self and your limits to openness and your standards to openness and your boundaries, and then you'll be better. Then you'll be a bit more relaxed. Then you won't fear as much going into the world. Then you won't fear women as much. You don't have to be completely safe once you know your foundations. That's when you kind of realize you don't really need a suit of armor. You just need to know your limits, and you just need to be okay with saying no and walking away and turning your back on people that are trying to take advantage of you. You know, these are just insecure survival instinct people, and the world and everything outside you is largely like that. You just need to be like that, directed internally. Have that really calm, reflexive survival instinct for yourself. Turn it inward, as corny as that sounds. And once you establish that kind of openness and security, the world largely matters less and less in terms of being afraid of, oh, I hope my job and my work doesn't take advantage of me. I hope this female doesn't take advantage of me. You don't care, because they won't. If you're sensible. Again, I'm not saying get married, go back to the plantation. Those things, once you drop into that abyss, no matter how mentally strong you are, the world will actually wring your neck. I'm saying be wary of the language they're using to make you fragile, and not open and secure for your own sake. At the end of the day, the stuff we talk about, and the stuff I like to talk about on my channel, is supposed to make you stronger and more secure. And so the semantics of what the culture starts to sort of blur the lines with in language, you know, making a virtue of weakness. You know, the more of a victim you can be, the stronger you think you are in the eyes of society, and then you wonder why you need antidepressants. You know, you're listening to their words that drive you to be a more fragile and weak person because you're thinking it'll make you stronger. So yes, be weary and suspicious of clever words that they use as bait to make you open up for them, where it's not really for you. Remember, gentlemen, the world's largely gynocentric now, so why would you trust its memes and promises and spirituality? Why would you trust the world's definition of openness and vulnerability and spirituality if it's rushed, if it doesn't give you time to think, to reflect, to self-analyze? Anyway, I hope some of that made sense and it was something to think about. I'll talk to you later, gentlemen.